Assalamu alaikum, my dear students. I am here with new lesson for this week today from chapter number 1, Human Organ System. But before moving on to today's lesson, as you all know that first we always have recapitulation of previous lesson. So in previous lesson, we have discussed functioning of kidneys, and you have studied that functioning of kidneys is actually the urine formation. Then we have discussed urine formation process in detail, and when we were studying process of urine formation, we came to know that it actually consists of three steps: pressure filtration, selective reabsorption, and tubular secretion. Then each step we have discussed in detail. Pressure filtration is actually the filtration of blood when it passes through glomerulus under high pressure, and during this process of pressure filtration, the pressure forces the components present in the blood to pass out from the capillaries into the Bowman's capsule. Then there was the second step of the process that was called as selective reabsorption, and you all know that in selective reabsorption the useful components like glucose, certain salts, vitamins, hormones, and amino acids, which were forced out of the glomerular capillaries into the Bowman's capsule, are simply reabsorbed from the filtrate. And while doing so, 99% of the filtrate is reabsorbed, and then we are left with the last step of this process, that is tubular secretion. And in tubular secretion, the components which are reabsorbed in the step of selective reabsorption, only those components are left in the filtrate which are not useful, and these not useful components actually constitute the urine. And certain secretions were also done in the tubule. That's why the step is precisely known as tubular secretion. And then that filtrate, which is now being termed as the urine, moves through the collecting duct and finally into the renal pelvis, and from the renal pelvis it moves out of the kidney. So this was the whole recap of the previous lesson. And then this is the diagram explaining the comprehensive process of urine formation. Here the first step is occurring, that is the pressure filtration, and then from here proximal tubule, loop of Henle, and up till the distal tubule, tubular reabsorption or selective reabsorption is occurring, and then in the distal tubule starts the tubular secretion, and then from here the urine moves from the collecting duct into the renal pelvis and extruded out of the kidneys. So I hope, my dear students, now you have had a good recap that what you have done in the previous lesson, and now coming towards today's lesson, that is actually focusing on the malfunctioning of the kidneys. What is meant by malfunctioning? It simply means abnormal functioning, or something which is not occurring normally. So malfunctioning of kidney in simple words means when kidneys are not able to perform their normal functioning. So when kidneys are not able to perform their normal functioning, it actually leads into two situations. The first one is termed as kidney stones, and the second one situation is termed as renal failure. So let me discuss each situation in detail. Kidney stone formation or formation of kidney stones occurs when we have already discussed that kidneys are not able to work normally or efficiently. So when kidneys are not able to function efficiently, what happens? Salts present in the blood accumulate in the kidneys, and these are not able to move out of the kidney, as kidneys are not able to function efficiently. So when the salts accumulate in the kidneys, these actually form the stones. So the stone formation is not the normal condition. In normal conditions, the salts have to be removed out of the kidneys. So in this process, in this case, we have seen that salts which have to be removed out of the kidneys are not being removed, and they have been accumulated in the form of stones. So definitely this is not the normal situation. The stones present in the kidneys cause severe pain, and most of the times these stones remain inside the kidneys, but that is not always the case. The stones may move from the kidney and travel to the ureter, and that they even move to the urinary bladder as well. So in simple words, you can see that stones are actually being formed in the kidneys, but they are traveling, moving from the kidneys up to the ureter and even to the urinary bladder as well. This is a figure depicting a kidney having the kidney stones. So this is definitely an abnormally functioning or a malfunctioning kidney, because in normal kidney, the stones which you can see over here, and one of the stone is moving to the ureter, this is not visible because normal kidneys do not contain stones, and if they contain stones, then we term it that it is actually the malfunctioning kidney. Okay, what are the causes of stone formation? The main causes of stone formation, number one is high calcium diet. That means taking in diet having high levels of calcium, the levels of calcium which are needed in our body, but that level is up to a certain limit. And when we consume calcium, um, then more than the required amount, then definitely it leads to the stone formation. And the second one is uric acid level increases in your blood and body, that also leads to the stone formation. How we can take a high calcium diet? That happens when we take mole salts, and plus there are certain green leafy vegetables which are the cause of high calcium diet and leading to the kidney stone formation. So these were the certain causes. And now the types of stones. The stones formed inside the kidneys are of three types based on their size. Number one is small sized stones, number two is medium sized stone, and number three is large sized stone. So depending upon their size, whether they are small, medium or large, there are three types of stones. So on the basis of the size of the stone, there are the treatment strategies. Now, we are going to discuss treatment of kidney stones one by one. As I have already discussed that treatment depends upon the size of the stone. So in case when there are small sized stones accumulated inside the kidneys, the treatment is simply taking plenty of water. The small sized stones can be simply removed out of the kidneys by drinking large amount of water. So when we drink large amount of water, the stones present in the kidney move out of the kidney along the urine and move out of your body. Now, how medium-sized stones are treated? Medium-sized stones are treated through a specific process termed as lithotripsy. Lithotripsy is a process in which shock waves are bombarded onto the kidney stones from outside the body, and these shock waves break the stones into small pieces, and these small pieces uh, of the stones now are able to move out of the body through urine, definitely by drinking large amount of water here as well. This is a lithotripter, the machine or the device used to do the process of lithotripsy is termed as lithotripter. So here you can see this lithotripter, and the patient is lying over here. And as I have mentioned, that shock waves are bombarded from out of the body and onto the kidney stones. These shock waves break the stones into the smaller size, and these smaller size stones are now able to move out of the kidney through urine. Now the third category of stone is a large size stone. My dear students, large size stones can only be removed from our kidneys by the process of surgery. Surgical operation is needed, in which what surgeons do, they simply through a surgical process cut the kidney and remove the stones present inside the kidney, and then they do the stitching process, the normal process which occurs during the surgical procedures. Okay. The second condition which occurs as a result of malfunctioning, which we have already mentioned, that is the renal failure. What is meant by renal failure? Renal is a term associated with the kidneys, and failure word is indicating that something is not able to work. So renal failure is simply the condition or the situation when kidneys are unable to perform their function either completely or partially. So simply complete or partial failures of the kidney to work is termed as renal failure. Just like the kidney stones, as there were certain causes for the kidney stones, same is the case over here. There are certain causes of renal failure as well. How we can classify them? Number one is long-term infections also lead to the renal failure. Diabetes mellitus is a disease. Hypertension is another disease. These two are a very main cause of renal failure. And then there is another situation which can lead to kidney failure is sudden blockage of blood supply to the kidneys. When the blood reaching to the kidneys is suddenly blocked by, due to any condition, then it can also lead to the kidney failure. Okay. In the previous slide, I have mentioned about the diabetes mellitus and hypertension, and categorized them as one of the cause of the renal failure. So let me tell you what is diabetes mellitus. Diabetes mellitus is a disease, and that is a term used for a disease which we simply, in normal words, non-scientific words, we call it as a sugar. The disease which we call as a sugar is actually scientifically called as diabetes mellitus. And what it actually is, the disease, simply high sugar level in blood. When the blood uh, has high level of sugar up to the required amount, greater than the required amount, that is termed as diabetes mellitus. And then there is a second disease that is termed as hypertension. Hypertension is a disease where body blood pressure increases efficiently. So high blood pressure is termed as hypertension. These two are one of the main cause of renal failure. Now, how to treat renal failure? Renal failure is treated by two methods. Number one is dialysis, and number two is kidney transplant. So, we are going to discuss dialysis and kidney transplant in our next week lesson, inshallah, in detail. So, with this, we come to an end of today's lesson. Let's have a recap of today's lesson. In today's lesson, we precisely focused on to the malfunctioning of the kidneys, and we have found out that malfunctioning of the kidneys actually leads to two situations. Number one is kidney stones, and number two is a renal failure. And while studying kidney stones in detail, we have actually discussed that how kidney stones are formed and what are the main causes of the kidney stones, and then we have discussed the treatment strategies for the kidney stones in detail. Then comes the renal failure. We have discussed what renal failure is, and we have also discussed the causes of renal failure. I have mentioned the treatment methods for the renal failure, but detail we are going to discuss in next lesson. With this, we come to an end of today's lesson. I hope you all have a very good idea about the malfunctioning of the kidneys now. I will suggest you to read it thoroughly and understand it, memorize it, and we'll meet in the next lesson, inshallah. Thank you so much.